Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space and another STAMPtember collab video. For those that aren't aware, the STAMPtember limited edition exclusive collaboration sets are only through Simon Says Stamp, only while supplies last. Once they sell out, they are gone for good, will not be restocked. However, I will link to the brand collab, like the actual brand, in the description box below my videos and in my blog post, because there's always so many other products. All of this is just for fun and inspiration, all the good things. And today's collab, as the title says, is with Pink and Main, and it's super cute. Love it. They did a similar set last year by the same designer, and it was one of my favorites. And it sold out like quicker than anyone could have ever anticipated. So I'm hoping that they have super extra stock this year, because it's another cute one. I couldn't resist. I ended up making 2 cards because I had to use all the images. They're adorable. So, as always, links will be below. And that's all I got to say, other than keep watching and I will show you guys how I made these cards. Yeah, this set is like uber adorable. Love. Anyway, I started by stamping the images from the set onto Simon Says Stamp's smooth, white, 120-pound cardstock. So I put the cardstock in my MISTI and lined up all of the little snowmen, snow marshmallows. You know, how cute. How cute are these? So I lined them all up. And I stamped them with Simon's Intense Black ink, which is an alcohol marker friendly ink, because I'm going to do Copic coloring again for all these little guys. And yeah, I couldn't decide. I tried really hard. I was like, which image should I make? I should only make one card, because for those that aren't aware, my collaboration package with all the sets for this month was lost in transit for about 2 weeks, and I just got them, and I have been just pumping out videos. It's been fun, but it's a little chaotic. Anywho, couldn't make up my mind, stamped all 4, colored all 4. I didn't even bother including real, a little bit of real-time coloring. This is all super sped up because I need to get through this video. I'm already behind. By the time I'm done uploading and processing this video, etc., the set's already going to be live, so I'm legit rushing. Anyway, all the coloring was pretty basic. I used Cool Grace for all these little penguins. I don't know what it is about these guys too. I just got a kick out of them. They're little chunks, And then the snowmen, because they're technically marshmallows, I can't leave them white. Normally if I'm coloring like snowmen, I will either do very light grays for the bit of shading, or, the light aqua colors, that sort of a thing. But for these dudes, I was like, they're toasted, just slightly toasted marshmallows, because that's my favorite. Having a campfire, roasting some marshmallows, and I get just supreme satisfaction to get them, toasted to perfection, just shy of burnt, Oh, love. Anyway, that's how I colored all these guys. They're just little toasty marshmallow snowmen. So after I did all of that, a little bit of pink for their cheeks, of course, and then my kind of main color combo, I decided to go with purples. So a bunch of their little accessories and hats and whatnot I did in purples, and then I also did olive greens and a kind of dusky sort of blue-green combo. I think I mentioned that in a recent video. I'm honestly not sure. Everything's sort of blurring into everything else. But I've been trying more to reach for colors I don't normally reach for. Do color combos I don't normally do, because I just experiment. Why not? So that's what I did. Olive greens, not something I use very often, and yet, those with purple and then the aqua colors, it's like, oh, yes. Love it. So I just kind of went around, and my same old when it comes to alcohol marker coloring. I go darkest to lightest. For me, it's just easier and faster. If you're just starting with alcohol markers, though, generally rule of thumb is to go lightest to darkest. You have much more control. And that's what I did for years. And then I just started, switched it up and started doing it this way. And this is what I prefer. But again, for me, it's just a matter of getting her done. But yeah, once I was done coloring all the things, I used my colorless blender to kind of push out areas where I, went over the lines, etc. I took my white gel pen, added random highlights, little, details here and there. I was not following any sort of light source, which I think I've also mentioned in recent videos. For me, anyway, I just don't pay attention to it. It is an important little aspect. Light sources and shading, and makes things a little more cohesive, but one, didn't have time for that, and two, they're just cute. I don't think anyone's gonna have an issue like, why does this, part of the image, the shading's over here, and why does this one have the highlight there? I ain't too worried about it. So once I was done coloring everything, I pulled out just a couple panels of white cardstock, lightly misted them with my spray bottle. This just helps soften the paper fibers so that it embosses better. And to emboss them, I'm using Simon's Snowflake oval frame embossing folder. This came out a few years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, something like that. Still available. I'll have links, like I always do with everything, in the description box below the video. But embossed the panels, and for my machine and what works for me with Simon's, specifically Simon's embossing folders, is my Spellbinders Platinum 6 and the original base plate, and then 2 metal shims. The other different sandwiches work for different people, but this is the one that I've kind of come across that just works to perfection. And then, like I said, lightly misting the cardstock just helps get a better impression. So then after I embossed it, I did some ink blending. And I started with Concord 9th Lilac ink because I wasn't sure. I was like, do I want light purple, or do I want like deeper purple, or do I want to blend like the deeper just slightly into, I wasn't sure. So I was like, meh, I'll just do both. So I started with the light purple, and I was like, this is pretty. And then I went into Fig, which was much darker than I expected. And I was like, but I love it. Also, and I always mention this, with Concord 9th inks and with Simon's Positively Saturated inks, very similar formula. I don't know for sure, but from just my experience, very similar formula. And they both dry back as they, dry, they soften a bit, so they're not as intense as they look when they're wet, which is always why it is a good idea to do like swatches and things. With the Concord ones, I haven't done that yet. It's on the to-do list. I'll get to it after September at the bare minimum. So anywho, I die cut some scraps of white cardstock, and I use the Spellbinders Essential Modern Ovals wafer dies. And on those, I blended some Tide Pool ink. And I didn't bother going all the way to the bottom because those are going to get covered up. And after I did that blending, I pulled out my splat box and my little palette and some Ranger Perfect Pearl powder. Put some of the powder on the palette, mix it with water. Perfect Pearl powder has a binder in it, so when it is mixed with water, that like activates the binder. So you do not need to seal it or do anything fancy. I've shown this in tons and tons and tons of videos. Lately, I've been using my mica stains as for splatter, which also is fabulous. But this is great too. I love my Perfect Pearl powder. Perfect Pearl powder. I will never give it up. It's beautiful. And I heavily splattered it. I splattered it on the little ovals, and I splattered it on these embossed snowflake backgrounds. As you can see, I used every little tiny bit of that. I even scraped it right off the palette, like onto these. The more the better, honestly. I have yet to do anything where it's like, oh, that was too much splatter, Might be in some people's eyes. For me, there's never enough. Anyway, after I'd done that, I die cut some white glitter cardstock. I die cut it first with that same oval wafer die. And then I pulled out an oldie but goodie. It was the Lawn Fawn SLIMLINE stitched hillside borders that came out eons ago. I think they might be out of stock, but I think they still make them. I always use these to create like snowbanks and things like that. And that's what I did. So I die cut 2 pieces of them with the ovals and those slimline stitched hillside borders to create the little snowbanks. Layered them together with craft tacky glue. And once I've got that, I've kind of got my little scenes for my little marshmallow snowmen and their little penguins. So then for my sentiments, I just grabbed a piece of black cardstock, used my anti-static powder tool on it, and then I inked up a couple sentiments from that stamp set with clear embossing ink, stamped that onto the cardstock, coated it with Simon's Detail white embossing powder, tapped off the excess, and then melted it with my heat tool. And then off camera, I die cut these little sentiments with just a little circle wafer die. And once I've got those melted till everything's smooth and shiny and melted, set out all of that aside. The splatter on these backgrounds is dry, so I trimmed these down to 4 inches by 5 1/4. So just took like an even amount, like about 1/8 of an inch off each side, just so it'll be slightly smaller than my card base, so that the card base will kind of frame it up a little bit. So I used my little guillotine trimmer to trim all that down. And then once I've got those trimmed down, I got out my card bases, which are going to be top folding A2 white note cards, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I stamped a couple of the images from the set with that same Tide Pool ink. So I stamped those onto the insides of these cards, and then I picked out a couple more sentiments from the set, and the sentiments I'm going to stamp with VersaFine Claire Nocturne ink. So figured out like which sentiment I wanted on the inside of which card, and then again ink those up, stamp those onto the insides of the cards. And if I was thinking, because editing me, there's funky little like snowflake images in the set, I should have stamped those with the lilac ink. I still might do that, but it won't be in the finished like photos, anything, because all of that is edited and I do not have time to redo anything right now. But that would have looked really cute. I'm so annoyed that I didn't do that. Anyway, you know, ideas occur to me as I'm doing voiceovers. So, adhered the embossed backgrounds to the card base with the craft tacky glue. The ovals I popped into place with Simon's Big Mama foam tape, so it gives it just that little bit of dimension that I love. Once I've got those in place, all of my little characters I'm going to pop up also with just thin foam squares to, again, give it that little bit of dimension. So get those popped into place. And after I get those in place, the sentiments, same thing. Like I said, I die cut them with like a circle wafer die. And then I'm going to stick those on with little foam squares as well. So dimension is life, you know? So got those popped into place. And then as my final little bit of embellishment, because of course I had embellishment in my stash that like matched. These are the Trinity Stamps Mossy Morning Satin Baubles that kind of went with the olive green accessories on my little characters. So stuck those kind of around both of these cards. Once I was happy with the placement, I'll just adhere these into place with little dabs of craft tacky glue. And then once those are adhered, these cards will be complete. And like I mentioned in the intro, I will have links below the video to my blog post. I'll have links to this set. There's the set, and then there's the set with dies while supplies last. And I will link to also the Pink and Main product line, because they have tons of just adorable products. All the things. So I'll have links to all that along with everything else I used in the description box below the video, links to my social media if you guys want to follow me there. As always, thank you all so very much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't. I would love to have you. We're slowly closing in on 100,000 subscribers, and trust me, when that day finally happens, huge giveaways, big old party. I don't even know. Rough idea in my head. It's hard to even imagine getting to that point, so we'll see. But all the good things. I appreciate you guys. All the info's in the description box below. And yeah, I'll see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.